don't really know what to call this episode, whether this is another vlog or whether this is more like a spinning podcast or just like, it's basically, I'm just going to tell you where I'm up to. I'm 2 weeks out from my first wool festival, so I'm kind of going to give you a bit of an update about what's happened in the last week or so, where I'm at, where my head is at, and yeah, show you some squishy fibre. I just said to Matt as he was leaving the house that I'm like feeling really psyched. I was like, maybe a little bit too psyched. But yeah, I'm feeling really good. I feel like when I was editing my video from like 2 weeks ago, like I was really, like when I watched it back, I looked and sounded so tired, and I kept saying, I'm just really tired. I feel like I've moved out of that place now. I had been working, I normally garden every other week for 2 days, but for the last maybe like 2 months I'd been doing either 2 or 3 days nearly every week, because my customer, she was opening a garden for charity, so it was like a right, chuck all of the energy into getting it ready to be open, but I then asked for the next 2 weeks off so that I can just really concentrate. I love the irony of me saying really concentrate, and I just was getting completely distracted by the birds in the garden. So apologies. So yeah, I'm feeling much better in myself. I think I'm finding the balance a bit better now. I think I've like come to terms, or sort of, I feel like I've accepted where I am. Like it might not be where I wanted to be, but it's where I am, and there's nothing we can do about that. And I've kind of just got a plan now for how to kind of, yeah, how to make the most of the next 2 weeks. And I was like thinking about what went wrong last time for like the last market I did, and like why was it so stressful. And one of the biggest things was that I mean at the time I was spinning and weaving, and like weaving's even crazier in terms of like then the number of steps and the kind of like what is finished, and this is something, a principle that I used to work in software development, and like we used a lot of sort of lean principles, agile methodologies, and it's like it's all about kind of not having too many things in progress and making sure that when something's done, it's actually done. That's not like the main principle, but that's the thing that I'm trying to transfer from making software to making wool. Like what happened last time was that I ended up with just piles and piles of stuff, and I kept thinking, I'll just make, I'll have one more day of production, and then tomorrow I'll work on my labels and I'll do this. Well, I ended up like redesigning my packaging on the day before the craft market, and like hadn't used the paper, hadn't used the printer before, hadn't figured out how to like print labels double-sided and how to get them all aligned. So it's like I left all of that unknown to the last minute. So this time I'm like, no, you don't keep stacking up these things. Like make sure that kind of you're keeping on top of getting things to like done, like properly finished. So for example, I think you might have seen me work on this yarn the other week. This is the one that I picked up from one of the farms in Bradwell. And so like this is the definition of done. So this is, I've finished spinning, I've washed it, I've dried it, I've taken all of the measurements, and actually written the label. So I've got, like, this is ready to sell. And so that's what I'm trying to keep on top of, is that everything is properly done, and then it's going in the boxes behind me. I'm even putting everything into, I use Zettel, so that's my point of sale. And so I'm even putting everything in there now. I was umming and ahhing about how I wanted to track my inventory. Did I want to track my inventory, or did I just want to go, yeah, there's yarn, and you know, I'll just type in whatever price at checkout. But I you know, I like data, so I want to know what I took, and I want to know, as in, what kinds of yarn I took and what sold. Because obviously I can see what didn't sell, but I might have forgotten what I had made and what had sold. So I just want all the information, basically. So I decided that there's a little bit more work up front, but I think it'll be worth it, and it makes me feel calm. So oh, because the other subtle difference, you know, compared to, I suppose, when you see like indie dyers, they tend to have set skeins. So they'll have, you know, 50 or 100 grams, or maybe they were mini skein sets or whatever. But they know, you know, every single skein, you know, is 100 grams and it's this. Whereas for me, because everything's hand spun on my wheel, I've decided that I am pricing items based on their actual weight, as in how many grams. So this one is 54 grams. So I'm pricing it to the, like, rounding it down to the 50p basically increments, to then price this piece, because otherwise it's sort of, I get into a weird wastage and not properly charging for my work if I, you know, kind of then, if this 54 grams was charged at 50 grams and then that happened across 10 skeins, then it's like I'm almost giving away a skein for free. Those numbers might not be quite right, but do you get what I mean? So yeah, everything, in that sense, every skein is unique, and that's why I wanted to then have it in my point of sale as this is a specific skein of yarn. So yeah, I thought I would just update you on kind of some of the fleeces that I showed in the last video. So if you remember, I'd collected a big bag of Jacob's fleece from literally a mile up the road, and I'd been a little bit disappointed when I realised quite how veggie matter it was covered. I mean, it's not even like, well, actually no, it was kind of like all in it, but it almost just felt like there was too much straw around when the sheep were sheared. You know, like there was, it just had a surface covering of straw. So obviously that wasn't too hard to deal with, but then yeah, in the actual bits of fleece, it was a little bit like there was quite a lot to clean out. So what I've done so far with that Jacobs is I grabbed, I don't know, probably not even 200 grams, maybe 150 grams in the end, of different bits of the fleeces that I thought had potential. Washed it, tried to see how good it got, how easy it was to get out all of the crap. And so this is what I've ended up with. So it's really not too bad. Show you some of the white. So I feel like it's really not as bad as it could have been. And a lot of the stuff that's left will easily come out with carding. Like it won't be too bad. Generally though, maybe people will find it annoying, but I don't try and pick out every tiny bit of veggie matter, because if I did, I think I would just lose hours to it. And it's like at every stage that you're washing the wool. So, you know, when you're first washing it, and then after you've spun it, and then you wash that, and then even when you work with it, some of the what's left will fall out when you wash your finished product, you know, whether that be a scarf or a, you know, like a woven thing, or whether it, you know, be a hat or whatever, it will keep coming out. So it's sort of, it just seems daft to spend hours picking out all these tiny bits. Right. So far all I've done is some sample spinning, rather than committing to anything. So I decided I was finding it frustrating trying to sample for weaving. Like I couldn't come up with something that was like quick. So this is probably the most rudimentary thing I could do, but I feel like it's quite effective. So I'm just wrapping the yarn that I spin around a bit of card and kind of seeing how it then looks as a sort of close together. So I'll show you like the first bits that I did. This was sort of quite a tight single. I wouldn't really knit with this. I think this is only really for weaving. Oh, it's quite hard to see, isn't it? Dark stuff when it's... There we go. So it's nice, but it wasn't getting me that excited. I think what I love the most about Jacobs is when you play with the colours. So I then streaked it. So this is mostly dark chocolate, but I then had I sort of just put on the carding paddle bits of the sort of the lighter stuff. So it's kind of marled, and this is what I find this very exciting. So that's the kind of direction I think I'm going to head in. But yeah, I've just kind of not been super excited to play with it yet. I think I want to get more of it washed so that I can kind of just have a big mountain of fibre and kind of pick out what feels right together. It's sort of, I don't know, it's not incredibly soft. I think that's the other thing that's kind of like, yeah, I can't sort of, I mean, it's not scratchy. Yeah, okay, I'm being really fussy. I think it's because one of the other fleeces I've been working with has just been like ridiculously soft. So no, I should give it some more time. But I think, yeah, because kind of see picking bits out, because I know there's going to be so much more work of sorting it out to then wash it. Maybe I've just been a bit put off to kind of then invest a lot of time in the spinning bit until I know I've got enough of the fibre to play with. Yeah. Alright, so the thing that I was spinning in the last video, last week or whatever, was, well, I think it's a Texel or a Texel mule from my from my milk farmer, dairy farmer. God. Anyway, they've got some pet sheep. So I got some fleeces off them. One of them was this Texel mule. And I was explaining that I was experimenting with trying to spin a 2-ply yarn that could be used for knitting that would not take me too long to make. I kind of have a bit of a rule that I need it to be around an hour to spin 50 grams, otherwise I won't be able to charge what I need to charge. And I'm really, really excited with what I've ended up with. So this is it caked up. So what it's ended up with is this really lofty, bouncy yarn. So I feel like I want to like tell you what the percentage bounces or percentage stretches, but it's amazing. So I promised you some swatches in the last video and haven't washed this yet, so I don't really know how much it's going to change. And I think this was on 4.5mm needles. I think what I find amazing with swatching things like this is that you would look at this yarn and it sort of looks like really uneven. You know, there are bits that are barely spun and then bits that are kind of really spun, and you can see the two plies like, you know, really rounded together. And then when you knit it up, it doesn't look like that. Like, it looks really uniform, but with texture, I guess. And this is what I think is just really interesting about handspun yarn, or at least the stuff I'm producing. Maybe there are other people who'd be more consistent and you wouldn't be able to tell that it was handspun, but that's not what is exciting me right now. But it was the same with this waistcoat that I'm wearing, and I've talked about this in a couple of videos, I think. Like, this yarn is very similar. This one's a bit lighter, a bit loftier. Like, it's got similar kind of numbers to it, but I feel like the fibre is, the actual like individual wool fibres are thinner, so it kind of just is even lighter than this waistcoat. But again, like, it sort of, it just smooths out, but in a kind of interesting way. Anyway, I love it. So yeah, so I did this swatch, 4.5mm needles. I think it would be interesting to go up a needle size or two, because this is sort of got a bit of a slightly dense squish. Like, I feel like it could be even loftier. But what got me very, very excited is when I measured the gauge for this, it's kind of around the same gauge as 2 strands of unspun yarn. So, you know, Nutiden or Plotlopi. And like, I'm a big fan of unspun yarn, and one thing that had kind of been on my mind for ages getting into spinning was like, how am I going to make unspun yarn spinning? It's sort of a bit of a daft question. And what I feel like I've made here, like, could be the equivalent to, and that makes me very, very excited. Especially because, you know, I sort of had to tell myself to not buy things like Plotlopi and Nutiden in particular, because, you know, I think, what is one Icelandic and one Swedish, and I try and only work now with British yarns, or yarns with really good provenance, and yeah, and so I was like, I really want a British unspun yarn. But yeah, this is kind of behaving the same, because I think it is just so lofty. So yeah, I'm kind of going a bit swatch. I want to do a lot of swatches to kind of explain that to people, because I think the problem is that a lot of the commercial yarns, a lot of commercial, you know, 2-ply yarns, well, they're probably at this like thickness, diameter of yarn, like, it's not, they're not normally this lofty, this bouncy. They'd be a lot denser, and so I did, you know, if I said to somebody, you know, oh well, yeah, this is kind of like a chunky, you're expecting something a lot heavier for a chunky, but it's not that. See, I can't even explain it like in words, so I decided I just need to explain it in swatches. So the next swatch I did then, I haven't cast off yet because I don't know how big I want to make it. I decided to do brioche. I've never done brioche before, but I watched a video and realised it's actually not that complicated. Maybe like in a garment there'll be some extra things to worry about, but in terms of swatching, like, you're just doing basic. I can't even remember now. You're doing some slipping and you're doing some funky yarn overs that aren't real yarn overs. Anyway, brioche swatch. Oh man, it's like the squishiest. I just think it's amazing. I keep seeing brioche cardigans, all over brioche cardigans, and I'm just, yeah, I think I might need to make one. I just think it works so well, and because it's effectively brioche is a more dense fabric, isn't it, because of all of the slips. So you probably do want something that's a bit loftier, a bit more lightweight, otherwise your cardigan's kind of just going to end up being heavier and heavier. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about how this is coming out. So I've done a couple of skeins in this so far. Yeah, and we've just got, I've got my partner roped in now to do, to wash wool for me. So he's washing the raw fleeces, and so he's just washed, we think, probably about 400 grams worth of this texel mule. So I'm really excited to make some more similar stuff like that. I feel like it's really hard to know how much to make of a particular style of yarn. I'm kind of going into this wool festival kind of almost wanting to offer a lot of variety so that I can see what people are drawn to. You know, I don't even know what the split will be in terms of people who are, you know, exclusively knitters or exclusively weavers or whatever. So I'm finding it really hard to kind of commit to a load of one yarn. But to be honest, this one is really exciting me, and the batch that we've just washed is so soft. Like, it is next to skin soft. Like maybe like as good as merino kind of stuff. So I think I will double down on that, because if there is that one person who wants to make, you know, a full garment, then obviously they're not going to be happy if there's just like 3 50-gram skeins. So yeah, I think I'll try and make a good batch of that. But yeah, it's a big unknown. I've just grabbed a couple of skeins just to show you. So that's it, skeined up. So again, this is the texel or texel mule. This is it, the equivalent in Zwartbles. I feel like there's even more texture in the Zwartbles, you know, like you'd get a lot more depth as well. And then I haven't twisted this up yet, it's still a little bit damp, but this is in the, hang on, yeah, so that was the texel. This is the North Ronaldsay mule. So this is the other fleece that I picked up the other week. Picked up 2 fleeces from Bradwell, and I've done quite a lot of different yarn with the different styles of yarn, but this is the equivalent in terms of this lofty 2-ply. I feel like I ended up with a lot of luster in this one. I think it was partly like choosing particular sections of the fleece, but also like the way that I prepared the fibre has kind of made it very sort of more worsted than normal. It's still like ridiculously bouncy, so it's kind of behaving like a woolen, but it's kind of, I don't know, it seems a lot smoother than some of the others, so it's kind of got that kind of worsted sheen to it. So I'll just show you. I've really enjoyed playing with this fleece. I think this is where I've spent most of my time in the last week in particular. So I'll just give you a little rundown about the different yarns that I've made out of this one fibre. I've literally just got wool everywhere, and I'm like so nervous of mixing up like the texel and the North Ronaldsay mules. I like could be mistaken for each other, so I'm like really nervous of getting muddled. So that's another reason to get things labelled as quickly as possible. Right, so you've just seen the lofty 2-ply. I then went for, so that was carded fibre. I then went for like a bit of a wild you know, didn't card the fibre, just kind of like, yeah, lock spun it and tried to keep the tips kind of present. So can you kind of like see like here and stuff? Oh, that little curl down there. So this is spun really dense and really tight. So I wouldn't really recommend this for knitting, unless you were after something like this. But for weaving, like that, you just get so much like really subtle texture, which I love. And then I've done some singles as well. Again, to me, this is more weaving, but it's more because I haven't really knitted myself with singles, so I'm a bit nervous. But I'm sure there are people watching who are like, oh, that'd be perfect knitted. So I can show you sort of the first set of skeins I did, these singles. So they're kind of somewhere in between a kind of chunky, I don't know, it's not that chunky. So what kind of 45 meters for 50 grams, and I got it at about 8 wraps per inch. So I got those, and then I did some different kinds. So then these are still drying as well. So you kind of just see this one I kind of tried to go a bit thinner and a bit less twist. So I feel like that one I would try knitting, I think. But I don't know. I don't know what people will want to do with them. Yeah, so I'm just playing really with this one in terms of whether to go for more knitting, more weaving. There are certain bits of the fleece that felt much softer than others. So the things that were a bit rougher, a bit coarser, I've kind of then gone down more the kind of weaving route, so that you could kind of then weave like textiles, like home for the home, you know, table runners, placemats, rugs, just something a bit more hard wearing. So yeah, I just need those to dry, and then I can like take my measurements and see what they're coming out at. So yeah, and I've got sort of just really small samples of those different types of yarn. So again, I think I'll do some little knitted swatches just so you can see what it's like knitted up. I can show you. I'll show you the rest of the sort of like card experiments I did. Again, this was just me trying to figure out what it would look like woven. So I think that's the first one I did. So that was a sort of trying to go for a bit of a chunky two-ply. But for weaving, I like something that's got a bit more, well, I either want like more definition or less definition, and this felt too in-betweeny. So then I made that version, which is then more densely twisted, and kind of, yeah, I don't know, just more defined. So I feel like that would make a really interesting texture. And then this was it as just the single rather than plied, and that one was obviously a lot smoother. So yeah, do you think these kind of things are helpful? Like if I'm tempted to kind of make a maybe a bit more of a showy version of this, and have this kind of next to the yarns, so that I'll have like knitted swatches as well as like little samples to see what it would be like woven. Maybe you've got a better way. I've seen people do like, you know, maybe you use like a little pin loom or something. But I mean, there's so many choices, isn't there, with weaving about how you weave it, whether you're going for something really dense, what are you using on your warp versus your weft. So I don't know, it's kind of, it would be hard to demonstrate all of the possibilities, I think, is what I'm a bit nervous of. So yeah, I've got wool coming out of my ears. We've got, yeah, I've got a load of skeins inside drying. I've got all the stuff that Matt washed this morning is drying on the line. It's a nice sunny day, so that's a relief to kind of feel like we can actually try and get through some more of the fleeces. I'm going to be offering washed fibre for sale as well. I feel like there's quite a lot of options to buy like raw fleeces, but maybe you just want to try a little bit of fleece and you don't really want to tackle the washing yourself. It'll also be like the most affordable thing on my stall, so I'm sort of trying to make sure that I've kind of got options for people, so that I'm not sort of pricing people out by the fact that it's all like small batch handmade. As the other benefit to kind of having the 50 grams and less in terms of the skeins, because then, you know, yeah, you could just buy one skein, you know, for less than a tenner and just do a special project with that. So yeah, I'm hoping I'm covering all bases, but I'm just not going to know, I don't think, until I get there. So yeah, I feel like I've got a plan. I'm going to keep chugging away. I think today or tomorrow we're going to sort of do a bit of a dry run in terms of the furniture for the stall. That's the thing that's like keeping me up at night, is I keep rearranging my stall in my head and like imagining, you know, oh, how am I going to have, you know, I'm conscious I should have a big branding signage thing, but how can I do that really cheaply? Because basically money is really tight right now, so I can't really invest, you know, hundreds of pounds in my stall. I kind of need to do this one and then see how much I've got to reinvest to kind of upgrade the stall. So I'm hoping that I can kind of make use of a lot of stuff we've already got in the house, and just, yeah, print things off myself rather than having to pay for big signage. So yeah, that's where I'm up to. Feeling much more positive, but I just know that I need to keep ticking stuff off this week rather than leaving everything till next week, because I think that's when it's going to start to feel a little bit stressful. So I hope you don't mind this kind of bit more low production, I guess, update video. I really enjoy putting together the kind of vlog style things with loads of b-roll. Like it's just another creative outlet for me, but I just can't, like, it takes a lot of effort. Like it really detracts from what I'm trying to do, that at that moment everything takes twice as long as you're thinking about, you know, where to put the camera. And then obviously the editing, I spend a lot of time like just frame by frame kind of trying to get the cuts really nice. So yeah, I thought I can't even let myself entertain that this week. So yeah, but I just wanted to give you an update. And yeah, hopefully see some of you at the wool gathering. I'll put all of the details in the description box, so you can check out who else is going to be at the festival. I'm really excited. We went and well, we found an amazing place for coffee. This new coffee shop has opened in Buxton, called Dandelion Coffee House or something. Amazing coffee, and it's only like a 5-minute walk away from the venue, which is at the Pavilion Gardens. It's an amazing venue. It's kind of like like a massive glass atrium dome thing, and also you can, like, there's a park just outside. So for me, like, I'm always conscious when I go to, whether, you know, I'm going or I'm exhibiting at places like this, like, I like to know that, you know, there's going to be lots of natural light, that I can go and take a break. Like, you know, if it all gets too much and you're just overwhelmed, you know, put your headphones in, go and sit on a park bench for 5 minutes. Like, it's a really, really good venue if you find that kind of environment overwhelming. I think it's a very nice wool festival for just You do it in your own time. It's over 2 days, so again, you can kind of, yeah, split it if you're local or you're staying. Anyway, this has turned into a sales pitch, hasn't it, for the Wool Festival? But yeah, it should be a really good event. Check it out, see who else is vending there. There's some great businesses. So yeah, right, I'm gonna crack on. And yeah, hopefully see you soon. Bye.